Welcome once again, my friends, and thank you for stopping by to listen to an old storyteller. Today we have an Italian tale, and the title of this story is The 7 Doves. He who gives pleasure meets with it. Kindness is the bond of friendship and the hook of love. He who sows not, reaps not. Of which truth Siula has given you the foretaste of example, and I will give you the dessert, if you will bear in mind what Cato says, speak little at table. Therefore have the kindness to lend me your ears a while, and may heaven cause them to stretch continually, to listen to pleasant and amusing things. There was once in the county of Arzano a good woman who every year gave birth to a son, until at length there were 7 of them, who looked like the pipes of the god Pan, with 7 reeds, one larger than another. And when they had changed their first teeth, they said to Genitella their mother, "Hark ye, mother, after so many sons, you do not this time have a daughter. We are resolved to leave home and go wandering through the world like the sons of the blackbirds." When their mother heard this sad announcement, she prayed heaven to remove such an intention from her sons, and prevent her losing 7 such jewels as they were. And when the hour of the birth was at hand, the sons said to Genitella, "We will retire to the top of yonder hill or rock opposite, if you give birth to a son, and put an inkstand and a pen at the window. But if you have a little girl, put up a spoon and a distaff. For if we see the signal of a daughter, we shall return home and spend the rest of our lives under your wings. But if we see the signal of a son, then forget us, for you may know that we have taken ourselves off." Soon after the sons had departed, it pleased heaven that Genitella should bring forth a pretty little daughter. Then she told the nurse to make the signal to the brothers. But the woman was so stupid and confused that she put up the inkstand and the pen. As soon as the 7 brothers saw this signal, they set off and walked on and on, until the end of 3 years they came to a wood, where the trees were performing the sword dance to the sound of a river which made music upon the stones. In this wood was the house of an ogre whose eyes had been blinded whilst asleep by a woman. He was such an enemy to the sex that he devoured all whom he could catch. When the youths arrived at the ogre's house, tired out with walking and exhausted with hunger, they begged him for pity's sake to give them a morsel of bread. And the ogre replied that if they would serve him, he would give them food, and they would have nothing else to do but to watch over him like a dog, each in turn for a day. The youths, upon hearing this, thought they had found father and mother, so they consented, and remained in the service of the ogre, who, having gotten their names by heart, called once for Giangrazio, and another time for Cecchitello, now for Pascal, now Nucio, now Pon, now Basilio, and now Carcavecchia, for so the brothers were named. And giving them a room in the lower part of the house, he allowed them enough to live upon. Meanwhile, their sister had grown up, and hearing that she had 7 brothers, owing to the stupidity of the nurse, had set to walk through the world, and that no tidings of them had ever been received, she took it into her head to go in search of them, and she begged and prayed her mother so long that at last, overcome by her entreaties, she gave her leave to go, and dressed her like a pilgrim. Then the maiden walked and walked, asking at every place she came to whether anyone had seen her 7 brothers. And thus she journeyed on, until at length she got news of them at an inn, where, having inquired the way to the wood, one morning, at the hour where the sun with the penknife of his rays scratched out the ink spots made by night upon the sheet of heaven, she arrived at the ogre's house, where she was recognized by her brothers with great joy, who cursed the inkstand and pen for writing falsely such misfortune for them. Then, giving her 1,000 caresses, they told her to remain quiet in their chamber, that the ogre might not see her, bidding her at the same time to give a portion of whatever she had to eat to a cat who was in the room, or otherwise she would do her some harm. Siana, for so the sister was named, wrote down this advice in the pocketbook of her heart, and shared everything with the cat, like a good companion, always cutting justly, and saying, "This is for me, this for thee, this for the daughter of the king," giving the cat a share to the last morsel. Now, it happened one day that the brothers, going to hunt for the ogre, left Siana a little basket of chickpeas to cook, and as she was picking them, by ill luck she found among them a hazelnut, which was the stone of disturbance to her quiet. For having swallowed it without giving half to the cat, the latter, out of spite, jumped on the table and blew out the candle. Siana, seeing this, and not knowing what to do, left the room, contrary to the command of her brothers, and going into the ogre's chamber, begged him for a little light. Then the ogre, hearing a woman's voice, said, "Welcome, madam. Wait a while. You have found what you are seeking." And so saying, he took a Genoa stone, and daubing it with oil, he fell to whetting his tusks. But Siana, who saw the cart on a wrong track, seizing a lighted stick, ran to her chamber, bolted the door inside. She placed it against the bar, and bolting the door inside, she placed against its bars stools, bedstands, tables, stones, and everything there was in the room. As soon as the ogre had put an edge on his teeth, he ran to the chamber of the brothers, and finding the door fastened, he fell to kicking it to break it open. At this noise and disturbance, the 7 brothers at once came home, and hearing themselves accused by the ogre of treachery for making their chamber a refuge for one of his women enemies, Giangrazio, who was the eldest and more sense than the others, and saw matters going badly, said to the ogre, "We know nothing of this affair, and it may be that this wicked woman has perchance come into the room whilst we were at the chase. But as she has fortified herself inside, come with me, and I will take you to a place where we can seize her without her being able to defend herself." Then they took the ogre by the hand and led him to a deep, deep pit, where, giving him a push, they sent him headlong to the bottom, and taking a shovel which they found on the ground, they covered him with earth. Then they bade their sister unfasten the door, and they rated her soundly for the fault she had committed, and the danger in which she had placed herself, telling her to be more careful in the future, and to beware of plucking grass upon the spot where the ogre was buried, or it would be turned into 7 doves. "Heaven keep me from bringing such a misfortune upon you," replied Siana. So, taking possession of all the ogre's goods and chattels, and making themselves masters of the whole house, they lived there merrily enough, waiting until winter should pass away, and the sun, on taking possession of the house of the bull, give a present to the earth of a green gown embroidered with flowers, when they might set out on their journey home. Now, it happened one day, when the brothers were gone to the mountains to get firewood to defend themselves against the cold, which increased from day to day, that a poor pilgrim came round to the ogre's wood, and made faces at an ape that was perched upon a pine tree. Whereupon the ape threw down one of the fir apples from the tree upon the man's pate, which made such a terrible bump that the poor fellow set up a loud cry. Siana, hearing the noise, went out, and taking pity on his disaster, she quickly plucked a sprig of rosemary from a tuft which grew upon the ogre's grave. Then she made him a plaster of it with boiled bread and salt, and after giving the man some breakfast, she sent him away. Whilst Siana was laying the cloth and expecting her brothers, lo, she saw 7 doves come flying, who said to her, "Ah, better that your hand had been cut off, you cause of all our misfortune, ere it plucked that accursed rosemary and brought such a calamity upon us? Have you eaten the brains of a cat, O sister, that you have driven our advice from your mind? Behold us, turned to birds, a prey to the talons of kites, hawks, and falcon. Behold us made companions of water-hens, snipes, finches, woodpeckers, jays, owls, magpies, jackdaws, rooks, starlings, woodcocks, cocks, hens and chickens, turkey-cocks, blackbirds, thrushes, chaffinches, tomtits, jenny-wrens, lapwings, linnets, greenfinches, crossbills, flycatchers, larks, plovers, kingfishers, wagtails, redbreasts, redfinches, sparrow, ducks, fieldfares, wood pigeons, and bullfinches. A rare thing you have done. And now we may return to our country to find nets laid and twigs limed for us. To heal the head of a pilgrim, you have broken the head of 7 brothers. Nor is there any help for our misfortune, unless you find the Mother of Time, who will tell you the way to get us out of trouble. Siana, looking like a plucked quail at the fault she had committed, begged pardon of her brothers, and offered to go round the world till she should find the dwelling of the old woman. Then, praying them not to stir from the house until she returned, lest any ill should betide them, she set out, and journeyed on and on without ever tiring. And though she went on foot, her desire to aid her brothers served her as a sumpter mule, with which she made 3 miles an hour. At last she came to the seashore, where with the blows of the waves the sea was banging the rocks, which would not repeat the Latin it gave them to do. Here she saw a huge whale, who said to her, "My pretty maiden, what go you seeking?" And she replied, "I am seeking the dwelling of the Mother of Time." "Hear then what you must do," replied the whale. "Go straight along this shore, and on coming to the first river, follow it up to its source, and you will meet with someone who will show you the way. But do me one kindness. When you find the good old woman, beg of her the favor to tell me some means by which I may swim about safely, without so often knocking upon the rocks and being thrown into the sands." "Trust to me," said Siana. Then, thanking the whale for pointing out the way, she set off, walking along the shore. After a long journey she came to a river, which, like a clerk of the treasury, was disturbing silver money in the bank of the sea. Then, taking the way up to its source, she arrived at a beautiful open country, where the meadow vied with the heaven, displaying her green mantle, starring over with flowers. And there she met a mouse, who said to her, "Whither are you going thus alone, my pretty girl?" And Siana replied, "I am seeking the Mother of Time." "You have a long way to go," said the mouse, "but do not lose heart. Everything has an end. Walk on, therefore, toward yon mountain, which, like the free lords of these fields, assume the title of Highness, and you will soon have more news of what you are seeking. But do me one favor. When you arrive at the house you wish to find, get the good old woman to tell you what you can do to rid us of the tyranny of the cats. Then command me, and I am your slave." Siana, after promising to do the mouse this kindness, she set off towards the mountains, which, although they appeared to be close at hand, seemed never to be reached. But, having come to them at length, she sat down tired upon a stone, and there she saw an army of ants carrying a large stone of grain, one of whom, turning to Siana, said, "Who art thou, and whither art thou going?" And Siana, who was courteous to everyone, said to her, "I am an unhappy girl, who, for a matter that concerns me, am seeking the dwelling of the Mother of Time." "Go on farther," said the ant, "and where these mountains open into a large plain you will obtain more news. But do me a great favor. Get the secret from the old woman, what we ants can do to live a little longer. For it seems to me a folly in worldly affairs to be heaping up such a large store of food for so short a life, which, like an auctioneer's candle, goes out just as the best bidding of years. Be at ease, said Siana. I will return the kindness you have shown me. Then she passed the mountains and arrived at a wide plain, and proceeding a little way over it, she came to a large oak tree, a memorial of antiquity, whose fruit, a mouth which time gives to this bitter age of its lost sweetness, like sweetmeats to the maiden, who was satisfied with little. Then the oak said, making lips of its bark and a tongue of its pith, said to Siana, Whither are you going so sad, my little daughter? Come and rest under my shade. Siana thanked him, but excused herself, saying that she was going in haste to find the mother of time. And when the oak heard this, he replied, You are not far from her dwelling, for before you have gone another day's journey, you will see upon a mountain a house, in which you will find her whom you seek. But if you have as much kindness as beauty, I prithee learn from me what I can do to regain my lost honor. For instead of being food for great men, I am now only made the food of hogs. Leave that to me, replied Siana. I will take care to serve you. So saying, she departed, and walking on and on without ever resting, she came at length to the foot of an impertinent mountain, who was poking its head into the face of the clouds. There she found an old man, who, wearied and wayworn, had lain down upon some hay, and as soon as he saw Siana, he knew her at once, and that it was she who had cured his bump. When the old man heard what she was seeking, he told her that he was carrying to time the rent of the piece of earth which he had cultivated, and that time was a tyrant who usurped everything in the world, claimed tribute from all, and especially from people his age. And he added that, having received kindness from Siana, he would now return it 100-fold by giving her some good information about her arrival at the mountain, and that he was sorry he could not accompany her thither, since his old age, which was condemned rather to go down than up, obliged him to remain at the foot of these mountains, to cast up accounts with the clerks of time, which are the laborers, the sufferers, and the infirmities of life, and to pay the debt of nature. So the old man said to her, Now, my pretty innocent child, listen to me. You must know that on the top of this mountain you will find a ruined house, which was built long ago, time out of mind. The walls are cracked, the foundations crumbling away, the doors worm-eaten, the furniture all wood, and in short, everything is going to rack and ruin. On one side are seen shattered columns, on another broken statues, and nothing is left in a good state except a coat of arms over the door, quartered on which you will see a serpent biting its tail, a stag, a raven, and a phoenix. When you enter, you will see on the ground files, saws, scythes, sickles, pruning hooks, and hundreds of vessels filled full of ashes, with the names written on them like gallipots in an apothecary's shop, and there may be read Corinth, Saguntum, Carthage, Tony, and 1,000 other cities, the ashes of which time preserved as trophies of his conquests. When you come near the house, hide yourself until time goes out, and as soon as he has gone forth, enter, and you will find an old woman, with a beard that touches the ground and a hump reaching to the sky. Her hair, like the tail of a dappled gray horse, covers her heels. Her face looks like a plaited collar, with the folds stiffened by the starch of years. The old woman is seated upon a clock, which is fastened to a wall, and her eyebrows are so large that they overshadow her eyes, so that she will not be able to see you. As soon as you enter, quickly take the weights off the clock, then call to the old woman and beg her to answer your questions, whereupon she will instantly call her son to come up and eat you. But the clock upon which the old woman sits, having lost its weights, her son cannot move, and she will therefore be obliged to tell you what you wish. But do not trust any oath she may make, unless she swears by the wings of her son, and you will be content." So saying, the poor old man fell down and crumbled away, like a dead body brought from a catacomb to the light of day. Then Siana took the ashes, and, mixing them with a pint of tears, she made a grave and buried them, praying heaven to grant them quiet and repose. And ascending the mountain till she was quite out of breath, she waited until Time came out, who was an old man with a long, long beard, and who wore a very old cloak covered with slips of paper, on which were worked the names of various people. He had large wings, and ran so fast that he was out of sight in an instant. When Siana entered the house of his mother, she started with a fright at the sight of that black old ship, and instantly seizing the weights of the clock, she told what she wanted to the old woman, who, setting up a loud cry, called to her son. But Siana said to her, "You may butt your head against the wall as long as you like, for you will not see your son whilst I hold these clock weights." Thereupon the old woman, seeing herself foiled, began to coax Siana, saying, "Let them go, my dear, and do not stop my son's course, for no man living has ever done that. Let go of them, and may heaven preserve you, for I promise you, by the acid of my son, with which he corrodes everything, that I will do you no harm." "That time's lost," answered Siana. "You must say something better if you would have me quit my hold." "I swear to you by those teeth which gnaw all mortal things that I will tell you all you desire." "That is all nothing," answered Siana, "for I know you are deceiving me." "Very well, then," said the old woman. "I swear to you by those wings which fly over all that I will give you more pleasure than you imagine." Thereupon Siana let go of the weights, kissed the old woman's hand, which had a mouldy feel and a nasty smell. And the old woman, seeing the courtesy of the damsel, said to her, "Hide yourself behind this door, and when Time comes home I will make him tell me all you wish to know. And as soon as he goes out again, for he never stays quiet in one place, you can depart, but do not let yourself be heard or seen, for he is such a glutton that he does not spare even his own children, and when all fails, he devours himself and then springs up anew." Siana did as the old woman told her, and lo! soon after, Time came flying quick, high and light, and having gnawed whatever came to hand, down to the very mouldiness upon the walls, he was about to depart, when his mother told him all she had heard from Siana, beseeching him by the milk she had given him to answer exactly all her questions. After 1,000 entreaties, her son replied, "To the tree may be answered, that it can never be prized by men so long as it keeps its treasures buried under its roots. To the mice, that they will never be safe from the cat unless they tie a bell to her leg to tell them that when she is coming. To the ants, that they will live 100 years if they can dispense with flying, for when the ant is going to die she puts on wings. To the whale, that should be of good cheer, and make friends with the sea mouse, who will serve him as a guide, so that he will never go wrong. And to the doves, that when they alight on the column of wealth, they will return to their former state." So saying, Time set out to run his accustomed post, and Siana, taking leave of the old woman, descended to the foot of the mountain, just at the very time that the 7 doves, who had followed their sister's footsteps, arrived there. Wearying with flying so far, they stopped to rest upon the horn of a dead ox, and no sooner had they alighted than they were changed into handsome youths as they were at first. But while they were marveling at this, they heard the reply which Time had given, and saw at once that the horn, as a symbol of plenty, was the column of wealth of which Time had spoken. Then, embracing their sister with great joy, they all set out on the same road which Siana had come. And when they came to the oak tree and told it what Siana had heard from Time, the tree begged them to take away the treasure from its roots. since it was the cause why its acorns had lost their reputation. Thereupon the 7 brothers, taking a spade which they found in a garden, dug and dug, until they came to a mighty heap of gold money, which they divided into 8 parts, and shared among themselves and their sister, so that they might carry it away conveniently. But, being wearied with the journey and the load, they laid themselves down to sleep under a hedge. Presently a band of robbers coming by, and seeing the poor fellows asleep, with their heads upon the cloths full of money, bound them hand and foot to some trees, and took away their money, leaving them to bewail not only their wealth, which had slipped through their fingers as soon as found, but their life, for being without hope of succor, they were in peril of either son dying or hunger, or allaying the hunger of some wild beast. As they were lamenting their unhappy lot, up came the mouse, who, as soon as she heard the reply which time had given in return for the good service, nibbled the cords with which they were bound and set them free. And, having gone a little way further, they met on the road the ant, who, when she heard the advice of time, asked Siana what was the matter, that she was so pale-faced and cast down. And when Siana told her their misfortune, and the trick which the robbers had played on them, the ant replied, "Be quiet. I can now requite the kindness you have done me. You must know that whilst I was carrying a load of grain underground, I saw a place where these dogs of assassins hide their plunder. They have made some holes under an old building, in which they shut up all the things they have stolen. They are just now gone out for some new robbery, and I will go with you and show you the place, so that you may recover your money." So saying, she took the way towards some tumbled-down houses, and showed the 7 brothers the mouth of the pit. Thereupon Giangrazio, who was bolder than the rest, entered it, found there all the money of which they had been robbed. Then, taking it with them, they set out and walked towards the shoreline, where they found the whale, and told him the good advice which Time, who is the father of counsel, had given them. And whilst they were still talking of their journey and all that had befallen them, they saw the robbers suddenly appear, armed to the teeth, who had followed on their footsteps. At this sight they exclaimed, "Ah! Alas, we are now wholly lost, for here come the robbers armed, and they will not leave the skin on our bodies." "Fear not," replied the whale, "for I can save you out of the fire, and will thus requite the love you have shown me. So get upon my back, and I will quickly carry you to a place of safety." Siana and her brothers, seeing the foe at their heels and the water up to their throats, climbed upon their whale, who, keeping far from off the rocks, carried them to within the sight of Naples. But being afraid to land them on account of the shoals and shallows, he said, "Where would you like me to land you? On the shore of Amalfi?" And Giangrazio answered, "See whether that can be avoided, my dear fish. I do not wish to land at any place hereabouts. For at Massa they say barely good day, and Sorrento thieves are plenty. At Vico you say you may go your own way. At Castle Lemaire no one says, 'How are ye?'" Then the whale, to please them, turned about and went towards the salt rock, where he left them, and they got put on shore by the first fishing boat that passed. Therefore they returned to their own country, safe and sound and rich, to the great joy and consolation of their mother and father. And thanks to the goodness of Siana, then enjoyed a happy life, verifying the old saying, "Do good whenever you can, and forget it."
Thank you once again for listening to this story. If you enjoyed this story, please press that like button. Also, please help an old storyteller out by subscribing to my channel. The next story will be posted in a few days, so until then, may your story continue to be a good one.